Welcome to This Explainer. We're going to completely transform how you look at property management. We're shifting it from that reactive, exhausting daily grind into a proactive, structured profession. Because let's face it, whether you own one single unit or 50, managing real estate in Uganda demands a fundamental shift in perspective.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the property management illusion, what you are actually managing out there, defining roles and boundaries, why systems always beat sheer effort, and finally, getting into that professional manager mindset. Let's jump right in.
Part 1, the property management illusion.
Most people think property management is just the surface stuff, right? Collecting the rent, calling up the fundis when a pipe bursts, showing empty houses, and dealing with noise complaints. But the real nature of this work, it's entirely different. It requires comprehensive oversight and control. You have to treat the land and the buildings like true business assets. You're not just managing concrete and bricks here, you are controlling relationships, money, expectations, and systems.
The truth is, the buildings themselves don't create stress. It's our reliance on informal systems and these massive misconceptions that cause your daily headaches. Take the dream of passive income, for example. Actually, without systems, real estate is literally immense daily operational pressure. Then there's the myth that a strong manager has to be this aggressive enforcer. In reality, aggression without structure just creates conflict. Professionalism and consistency, that's what actually creates control. And finally, that classic belief that tenants are always the problem. Well, more often than not, it's poor systems and unclear expectations that lead to those delayed rents and arguments in the first place.
Moving right along to Part 2. What exactly are you managing?
Well, first up, you're managing behavior. This is absolutely crucial. You're tracking payment habits, communication patterns, rule compliance, and conflict. Think about it. Most massive tenant problems start out incredibly small, maybe a slightly late payment or just one ignored rule. But if you don't correct that delay communication or that minor rule breaking early on, it just snowballs out of control into a totally unmanageable nightmare.
The second pillar is cash flow. A property can look incredibly successful from the outside, beautiful paint job, full occupancy, while completely crumbling financially on the inside because of uncontrolled costs or hidden arrears. You've got to carefully balance that rent collection against maintenance expenses, utility bills, and emergency costs. If your rent collection is all over the place, or if your costs are just running wild, your property is going to become unstable, no matter how good it looks.
Third, we manage the physical condition. And this is a big one, reminding us that buildings in Uganda deteriorate not just from age, but because problems are just ignored early on. You're protecting the safety, the appearance, the functionality, and the long-term value of the asset. The unfortunate reality here is that way too much maintenance is purely reactive. Problems are literally just ignored until they break, simply because no one bothered to set up a proactive system for regular inspections.
Now here's the kicker. There's a hidden fourth element that most people are completely unprepared for. The constant human pressure. Imagine a tenant calling you, literally crying for just one more week to pay rent, or a landlord demanding immediate results, but dragging their feet on critical approvals. The hardest part of property management isn't your technical knowledge. It's keeping a cool head and making clear, rational decisions while navigating this intense, constant pressure from tenants, landlords, and contractors.
Which brings us right into Section 3, defining roles and boundaries.
Listen, when boundaries break down, like when caretakers start acting like managers or landlords interfere every single day, accountability completely vanishes. Let's break it down. The landlord owns the asset and sets the goals, but their biggest mistake is usually micromanaging daily operations. That destroys operational control. Then you have the property manager. They act as the central hub. They control the systems, coordinate the tenants, and enforce the rules to create stability. And finally, the caretaker. They are strictly there for site supervision and reporting issues. Crucially, and I cannot stress this enough, they should have absolutely no financial control. Zero.
Let's look at a classic case, the helpful caretaker. When a caretaker bypasses the manager to collect rent just to help out, it might seem faster today, but it creates massive long-term damage. Suddenly, funds go missing. Tenants are confused about who's actually in charge, and your whole system starts relying on trust instead of structure. To fix this, you need rigid boundaries. Remove financial control from the caretaker immediately. Introduce a central rent tracking system. Clearly communicate those payment procedures to the tenants and formally, officially define the caretaker's role. And remember, you've got to reinforce those boundaries repeatedly.
All right, Part 4, systems over effort. Here's the secret. True professionals don't manage through sheer exhausting effort or rely on their memory. They rely on definitive systems. And what is a system? It's simply a repeatable process that produces consistent results. Most people out there are trying to manage properties through pure brute force, which means every single minor issue feels like a 5-alarm fire. When everything relies on your memory, small problems inevitably become major crises. You absolutely have to make your processes predictable.
There is a massive night and day difference between scrambling to solve a crisis and anticipating it before it happens. A weak system is reactive. It relies on chaotic WhatsApp chats, emotional follow-ups, and random rule enforcement only after a problem explodes. A strong system, on the other hand, sets clear due dates, uses one designated reporting channel, and tracks everything centrally. The result? Total operational control and drastically less stress.
I want you to remember this quote. Short-term comfort creates long-term instability. Making emotional decisions, like, avoiding a difficult conversation because a tenant sounds super convincing on the phone, that might feel good today. It avoids conflict today, but short-term comfort destroys your long-term stability. When you delay enforcing a rule simply to avoid an awkward conversation right now, you are literally sacrificing the future operational control of your entire asset.
And finally, Section 5, the professional manager mindset.
A professional isn't just someone helping out. They embody 4 specific traits. To establish control from day one, it starts with consistency, applying the rules fairly to everyone every single time, no exceptions. Next is remaining calm under pressure, because holding on to your emotional control is what actually creates true authority. They also build an obsessive documentation habit, tracking absolutely everything. And finally, structured communication. Using structured communication drastically reduces conflict before it even has a chance to begin.
So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative scenario to test yourself. Say you manage 8 units. 3 of those tenants pay late every single month, and you keep calling them personally, month after month. What critical system are you missing, and how are you going to implement it today? Think about your payment structure. Think about your reminder process and your enforcement tracking. Stop relying on sheer effort. Design a consequence structure today, because structure is always more powerful than effort. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep structuring, and go take control of your assets.